So my name is Ericka Vaughn Byrne. I am an artist, a movement artist. I also do some writing and teaching, education. I am a tax professional, preparer. I work for a company called Pay It Forward Taxes, which is what this one owns with Delicia Hamilton. And I've been preparing taxes for a year now. I will get a little bit more into like why I got into it after we do our game, but just taxes for artists personally have always been stressful, and so I really wanted to commit myself to understand better, which is why I got into this field.
Yeah, and I would say I got into it for similar reasons, but my name is Erin. Lashley, I'm one of the co-founders of Pay It Forward Taxes, which is on her sweatshirt. And
We're
I am,
sisters.
we are sisters. I am 18 months younger than she is. She's older. And I started Pay It Forward Taxes because I wanted to learn this piece, because I feel like a lot of us pay more in taxes than we should. And I feel like people kind of profit off of our ignorance. And so
Absolutely.
I want to change that. And I feel like we deserve to know more so that we can keep more of the money we work so hard to earn. So we wanted to pay it forward in that way. And that's where the name comes from. And that's why we're doing what we're doing. And specifically even more for creatives / artists, because I'm also a creative. I don't dance like my sister does, but I make videos and do like graphic design and copywriting and video editing for fun, also for my job as a brand strategist, because I also have another job. So I do all, just like an artist, I do all different types of things. So all of the things. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. And this company has been in existence for about 2 years now. And I also graduated from the same tax preparation school with over 100 hours of tax education. So we've been doing, we've gone through it. We've read the books, you know.
Yeah,
so
the nitty gritty of all of and they don't make it easy, right? Like Erin said, they profit off of our ignorance. And so we wanted to say, hey, let's become ignorant or educate ourselves, and then let's help our communities, which is you. So we're happy that you're here. So I'll just give a little bit of my story, and Erin and I will talk a little bit about why we decided to go into this. So as an artist, I have had, independent contractor life, so many jobs and 1099s and taxes not being taken out and all of these different aspects of what being an artist is. There's so much work that goes into it. And then at the end of the day, you're often left in the dark or at a negative at the end of the year. And so taxes were very, very stressful to me. Erin and I always think about the story of like when we first started doing our own taxes.
Because our dad was doing them before we learned and went through tax preparation school. My dad would do them growing up for us. And so he would crank the mess out of those things. But then when we became adults and tried and attempted, it took us, how long did it take us? Like, I don't know. I feel like 3 full days just to get through everything.
Just to like comb through everything and like the receipt.
Like, why are you asking me so many questions?
Right. Well, because also then, like we were using TurboTax and it's like, you owe $2,000. I was like, no,
start it over, do it again.
Like restart. Like we missed something. Where are those receipts again? What did I? So we felt like we were trying to learn the system while being in the system. I don't know if you've ever heard that quote, flying a plane while building a plane. Hello. And that can be super stressful. And I think a lot of times that's what tax season can become for artists or independent contractors, wherever you find yourself. And actually, if you go ahead and write in the chat, if you feel comfortable, what are you an artist? I know that was part of the registration, but if you could just, so Erin and I have that in our sort of screen right quickly, sort of where you are and what you do, just so that we know who we're talking to, that would be helpful.
Chloe's an artist. Well, everybody's an artist.
Freelance art. Okay.
Educator. Sarah, that's cool.
Perfect.
Film composer.
Whoa, love that.
Yeah.
Okay, we might need to talk. We might have some collaborations that happen after this. Jewel fabric artist.
That's so cool.
Beautiful. Teresa. Wow, yeah, we need to check out your website. Yeah, anyway, side note, let's
connecting later.
Yeah, let's connect and be friends. So there's so many things to think about when it comes to taxes. So that was sort of our story and why we decided that we wanted to become better and understanding write-offs and how to set ourselves up for the tax season so that it becomes less stressful. Thank you, Teresa. And more just about playing the system, because the system will play us if we don't play the system. That's just the way that it works. And so we are here to help you play the system.
I love that. All right, so we want to get into a few strategies, and even before that, I just want to talk, going through tax season last year, why don't you speak to a couple of artists you worked with and you prepared their taxes for, where you realized, man, they really missed out on this, that, and the other. Just speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, totally. So one thing that I noticed that a lot of independent contractors, artists, freelancers missed out on are tracking their expenses, like what they're spending their money on. And I mean, but it's kind of like a catch-22, because you're like, this is the things that artists hate. Like we hate tracking things and keeping receipts, like, ew, gross. So Erin will talk a little bit about some tools that we found that are helpful. But that is the biggest thing that artists missed out on, because there are so many things that we can write off that we just spend, right? That normal people spend as well, but because they're not an independent contractor or an artist, then it's not technically a write-off. But because we are, it is a write-off. And if we just keep track of that and have those receipts, it's even a picture of a receipt. Like I said, Erin will go over some tools that we found that are very helpful. But things like that really helped. Another thing too were grants, which are really huge, especially in this year. And like funds that you're getting from the government, even writing those things off. I worked with an artist who had this grant, and because she got this grant, it was considered income. And so it was like, oh my gosh, I'm owing this money now. And I said, and we sort of talked back and forth. I said, well, what did you spend it on? She said, well, I spent it on like paying my dancers and costumes for a project, And I was like, all of that can be written off. So she ended up getting something that was considered income, but because the things that she spent it on, which normally happens as an artist, was feeding back into her business, they were write-offs. And so she ended up being able to write the whole grant off, and she ended up actually getting money back last year.
That's where you want to be.
Yes. I mean, either even is ideal, because breaking even or getting something back is the way that you want to sort of look at that.
So with that being said, those are some of the strategies we want to talk through with you guys today. And these are some of the most helpful things that we found over last tax season. So let's get right into it. The first strategy is when you're just receiving a bunch of income, because usually as an artist, you're receiving a lot of 1099s, and sometimes taxes aren't paid on that, depending on how you set things up with the person that you're receiving money from. Most of the time, nothing's taken out. So essentially, it would be really helpful and strategic for you as an artist to allocate 30% of that income and just set it aside, because more than likely 30% is going to cover whatever you owe to the IRS come tax season. So allocating that throughout the year, if you're not having taxes taken out, just setting that aside is going to be really, really helpful for you.
And I think so thinking about that, sometimes you can't, right? Because you're like, I actually need all that money. So setting aside 30% is impossible. But I think having that awareness. So as an artist, I know our income can fluctuate. So like some seasons are more plentiful than other seasons. So if you can just start to look ahead and like cast that vision of like, okay, in some of my more plentiful seasons, can I then set aside some money to just at least have something to be able to put towards whatever the end of the year will look like for you. So I think, not getting stressed out or bogged down with like 30% of this thing, like I need all of that, but realizing like, hey, maybe these couple checks, I can't do that, but the next couple checks, when I have some things rolling in, I can set aside a little bit of money to like think about that.
Yeah. And I think just even being aware of it will allow you to just to think ahead, as Ericka was saying, and that's always helpful as well.
Always helpful.
What is PIFT? That's Pay It Forward Taxes, the name of the company that we own.
So this is the company that Erin started and I work for them.
Great question, Sarah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, please. I'm trying to keep track of the chat. So if you have any questions, drop it in there and we can definitely pause. We are going to leave time at the end of our conversation for any specific questions that you have for us. So know that time and space is coming.
Yeah, and we will give you a copy of this, all these slides too, so you don't have to remember everything. All right, so categorizing expenses in bookkeeping software. So we recommend what tends to happen is when you're tracking expenses, you don't necessarily know what categories the IRS deems to be acceptable. And so when you use something like a QuickBooks, we'll get into some free apps that you can use to help categorize your expenses. But if you use something like QuickBooks for small business, they set the categories for you. So as you're spending money, it can be categorized in an area that the IRS will deem acceptable. Because one thing I found working with some of the artists, they were tracking all of their expenses, but they were putting them in categories that weren't correct. So they were putting food somewhere else, but something that the IRS does is with food, it's only up to 50% of the food that you spend for your business that you can actually write off. And that's not something that people know. Some people know, some people don't. So having something that will properly categorize it for you is really, really helpful and strategic in the long run, because then it'll all be written off for you correctly. So we'll get into a little bit later some of the apps you can use for that, but that's definitely a strategic move that we'd recommend.
And again, some of this can be overwhelming. So I'm always thinking of from the perspective of like the overwhelmed artist, because I was that person. So I want to invite us all to be like, ooh, okay. Even now, like all this information, it's totally fine. Start where you can, right? If it is just tracking your expenses on your phone notes, that's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you can always categorize it later, but it's helpful to categorize it as you go. But if you're just tracking expenses, to your point, that's even a great start.
That's a great start. Like, this can be scaffolded. So maybe this upcoming tax season, just for these next couple months, you're like, okay, let me just track and get into the habit of like, what system works best for me? And then if you have someone that can help you at the end of it, like a tax professional, then they can help work through that a little bit for you. So again, it's sort of like approaching what you can, realizing that there's a lot to learn. But if you take one step at a time, you will be moving towards a place where financially you'll be in a better position come tax season in the years to come.
Yeah, good point, Ericka. So along with bookkeeping, it's a helpful habit to review your books at the end of each month. So let's say you're tracking your expenses or you're already doing that, being able to look at the last month and see where everything went and that everything was categorized correctly. That's just a really good habit to have. So we recommend that you review your books at the end of every month. If you can, again, you start with where you are and you figure out what's the best next step for me in my journey of figuring out taxes. So, if this is not the step for you, then skip it. But if it is, it's a good habit to have. Is I'm going to look over my expenses from the last month and just see how everything was, see what expenses I had and categorize them so that you're not overwhelmed at the end of the tax season trying to do everything at once. Anything else on that end?
Yeah, and I think if we start to think about these small chunks, right? So if you spend an hour, maybe 2 a month, how that can help you in the long run. So then you're not spending 10 hours or whatever at the end of the year with like all this stress and like it's due and then I owe and then I don't have time. But if you just take it'll probably take you even less than that, like an hour or less a month, just to say, okay, what did I spend? Let me just look at this really quickly. So investing in yourself in this way really will free you up in the long run, because as artists, we deserve more. You deserve to not have a stressful end of the year. You deserve to financially be able to keep most of your money and not have to pay the government all this extra. As an independent contractor, as an artist, you are giving into the community. You are enriching the lives of the people around yourself and our world. And so I think we firmly believe that should be rewarded and it shouldn't be penalized.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like, again, playing the system in that way and say, yeah, I actually deserve to keep all this money.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to pay you guys extra because I'm actually doing a service to my community. Yeah, so we just wanted to make that point. And also want to, again, leave space and room if anyone has any questions right now concerning anything that we've talked about. Like I said, I know it can be a lot of information, so we just want to leave a little bit of space if someone's like, I need a question.
I would say that I don't think that it's bad that you're breaking even, to be honest.
In a business she's talking about, not like getting back money from
Yeah,
taxes.
yeah. I mean, technically speaking, they give you, I believe, up to 3 to 4
Yeah, I
years
think it's 3 to 5 years.
to be
Mhm.
classified as an actual business to see profit in
Right.
that way. So I think, that just comes down more to like just having like more of a for-profit business strategy to see how you can maybe increase that profit.
I will say too that, I mean, so for me personally, as an independent contractor, as a dancer, I have my own business, right? I am the business. And I don't know that there's been any years that I've made a profit or broken even. So I think there are some, I don't know if you call it loopholes or exceptions, right? So it sort of depends on what the business is, what the model is. The IRS is mostly looking for like foul play. And so I think if everything's above board, if you're, if the books are what the books are, then there's no penalization for that. So
Yeah.
I think that's sort of a short answer to that, but we can get into some more details at the end.
We talked about this, keeping track of your receipts. I won't spend too much time on this because I want to get into some of the apps you can actually use to do that are free, that will be helpful to you. So I think we can just skip through that.
I will say this. So last year when I was helping an artist, I worked primarily with artists over the tax season just because that's a big passion of mine as a tax preparer. So one of the things that I noticed is we did a little bit of like bootlegging. So just so you know, technically, if you're not getting into some of these strategies that Erin will talk about in a minute, what you can do this coming tax season is your, what are those apps? Cash App, what are you talking about? The apps that people pay people money back and forth.
Oh, Venmo.
All of those are technically receipts, right? So if you screenshot those, that is a receipt of a transaction that you had, and often you will label what it is. If you print off your bank statement, it's tedious, right? And you can highlight different things. That is a receipt. So there is a way for you to benefit from this tax season, even though you might not have been doing it in some of these other ways that are a little bit better or more efficient, right? And so I just want I want to throw that out there. You do have receipts already, just as a human, and especially because everything's online now. We are living in an age that receipts are just often always there for us.
Yeah.
So there are ways that you can be more proactive in actually gathering those. But some of those, if you use those apps and you have your bank statement and you highlight things, they're a way to sort of bootleg them a little bit.
Yeah. And I will say this really quickly too. I used to think that you had to keep like every receipt you ever had and like keep like a receipt.
That's
like
what our dad did.
He used to keep like everything.
He had like thousands of receipts.
You don't technically need that. And also I would recommend in the app, there's apps where you can take pictures of receipts. Do they have to be printed, or they can be virtually saved, Teresa? That's a good question.
Yep.
Because the only time you'll ever actually need proof of the receipts is if you so happen to be audited one day by the IRS. They're going to want proof. But as long as you have access to that Dropbox or Venmo or Cash App or however you're spending money, I wouldn't worry too much about that. So I just want to give you an opportunity to breathe there.
Yeah. And actually, before you go to the next slide, I'd like to just lead us through like a little breathing thing. Okay, so we're going to sit up nice and tall wherever we are. Outside, inside, couch, bed, desk, whatever it is, right? We're going to take just like 4 really good deep breaths. I'll invite you to close your eyes if that feels comfortable. If not, you can look down, but I do want to give us an opportunity to not look at a screen just for a moment, right? So as you're just sitting here, either eyes closed or looking down, I just want you to take a moment and notice how your body feels. Maybe your heart's starting to race a little bit. Maybe you're getting some anxiety. Maybe you're calm, cool, and collected. But wherever you are, however you feel, just take a moment and be with yourself. Now I want to invite you to increase your breath. So taking a deep breath in, maybe 2 or 3 second inhale, and exhaling. Good. Feeling the body settle. Taking another deep breath in, expanding the diaphragm, the belly, and exhale. Feeling the shoulders relax even more, right? Top of the head reaching long. Take a deep breath in and exhale. One more really big deep breath in, breathing in peace, joy, happiness, breathing out, anxiety, stress. We don't need any of that. Okay, fluttering the eyelids open or looking up. Awesome. Thanks, guys, for taking a little mindful moment.
So, thank you for that, Ericka.
Yeah,
I feel really relaxed right now. I'm like, I feel like falling asleep. So this is another recommendation. If you're using TurboTax, or if you have a tax preparer that you've always worked with or something, usually more than likely they have something called audit protection. This is helpful if you are afraid of being audited, or really the IRS chooses people at happenstance. It's really random how they choose people to audit. But what audit protection is, it's almost like having a lawyer represent you on behalf of the IRS. So they're talking to the IRS on your behalf. So you're not stressed out and dealing with them directly. And usually when you have somebody representing you and talking to the IRS for you, usually, more than likely the IRS sees, oh, they have a professional, we're not gonna suck them dry of all their money, essentially. So audit protection usually is like, it's not super expensive. It's like a 30, 40, depending on what platform you're using or what tax preparer you go with, a $30, $40 expense. It's just basically almost like tax insurance. And it's something that I've used, my parents have used, different people have used. It's not necessary, but if for whatever reason you just want to have that protection, it is available, and some people don't know that that's available. So that's a strategy as well.
And it definitely is helpful. Like, we know a couple that did get audited and they didn't have that tax or audit protection. And so it was stressful for them, right? Because then they are the ones communicating with the IRS. The IRS has a certain language and lingo. They don't make it easy intentionally, right? They're banking on your ignorance. And so I think if you can afford just that little bit extra protection, we would recommend it, especially if you're nervous about like getting audited or did I do this right? Just having that reassurance, that buffer, so that you're not the one needing to communicate with the IRS, as Erin said. There's someone on your behalf that can help you. We would recommend that as always, if you can afford it, if it's not an extra stress on you financially.
And maybe you already know an enrolled agent or a CPA. Those are two qualified positions that are qualified to talk to the IRS on your behalf. So maybe your mom's a CPA or your auntie is like an enrolled agent or something. Be like, hey, I need you to jump on the phone for me and deal with the IRS. And that is a possible option for you. So just want to let you know about that.
And we are not CPAs, but we do know some people. So that's also, if you need a recommendation for someone to work with, we're more than happy to offer that to you if you would find yourself in a situation.
Yeah. And I think this is the last one. It's just being mindful of investments that you cash out. What is an enrolled agent? They have a certain level of education when it comes to finances. And when it comes to taxes as well. So it's basically a lot more credibility when it comes to understanding the IRS tax investments, a lot more schooling. So we don't have that personally, but we do have people on our team that know people that have that. So that's why we say
in the community of pay it forward taxes,
we're more than happy to help you with that.
Yeah.
So. But not as much as a CPA. A CPA is like one step above.
Yes, one step above is a CPA, but what's interesting too, some CPAs don't file taxes or even know how to file taxes. And I've never quite understood why they wouldn't just, learn that skill. But hey, CPA stuff is its own monster, So, but yeah, CPA is the highest level. Enrolled agent is a step above tax preparer. So that's kind of how they work in tiers.
And you want to say, for those that maybe not know what CPA stands for?
Actually, I don't.
Oh, offhand.
Yeah, I don't remember what it stands for.
Certified professional accountant, isn't it?
There you go.
There you go.
I'm like, I just know the CPAs. I'm not really sure.
It's like, what is it?
Thank you, Teresa.
Yes, but that's what it was. I just wanted to make sure, just for knowledge in the room.
All this gray hair, a few tidbits have come with that gray.
We appreciate you sharing your knowledge.
So now let's get into some freebie stuff. These are apps that we recommended for lots of clients last tax season, and I want to make sure that we share them with you so that you can get the most value at the end of this session. So the first app that's free that we would recommend is called Stride Health. It will allow you to track your expenses. It lets you take a picture of your receipt, and it'll prompt you to categorize it based upon categories that are acceptable to the IRS. I used it all last year personally, and it was super helpful. So this app is definitely recommended for that. It'll let you import expenses. You can even hook up your bank account to it. It will also let you track your mileage. We do have another app that we'd recommend for that because it's a little bit more advanced, but you can use Stride Health. The only thing I didn't like about the mileage tracker in Stride Health was that it was automatic. Like even when I didn't want it to track the trip, it was tracking the trip. And I was like, no, don't do it, Stride Health.
This is
a personal trip. This is not a business trip. So, but for tracking expenses, taking pictures of receipts, this is free, highly recommended. Anything you want to add to that?
I will say when it gets to, again, bite off what you can chew, right? So start somewhere. But if you get to the point where you're like, okay, I also feel like I can track my mileage, that's really helpful for educators, people that are traveling to different places of work, right? If you, I know that looks different in COVID, but if you are already traveling, or if you get to that point where you're traveling again, it's super helpful because those little things do add up. Like what you are doing matters, and it's just a matter of tracking that so that you can reap the benefits of the hard work you're doing. So a few little tweaks and steps here really do help during tax season.
Awesome. The second app we would recommend if you're wanting to track your mileage from different dance jobs or video shoots that you're doing or whatnot is called Mile IQ. It does automatic tracking. It'll let you categorize your drive. So you can say this is a personal drive versus this is a business drive. It'll give you really accurate reports to give to your tax preparer or to use for yourself if you're using TurboTax or something like that. So it's just really, really good. Highly recommend it. And it's also free, and free is a good thing. All right. And then the last app we'd recommend, there's a free version of this. Obviously with more features, it becomes paid, but if you're looking for bookkeeping, being able to, again, hook up your bank account, Stride Health does do that as well, but QuickBooks is basically accounting software. And if you're wanting to just kind of take the next level with that, you can use the mobile device to enter transactions, record expenses, invoice organizations or clients, or pull reports. So if you're paying money out and you're paying people, whether it's dancers or people you're working with, they just make that really easy to do that inside of the QuickBooks app, mobile application.
If you're selling something and people are paying you, right? So all these different transactions that happen when you're independently contracted and you're sort of working in these multiple fields.
So I would even say if you're not actively paying people, I would just use the Stride Health app because you can do all of that in there. But if you are actively paying people, QuickBooks, did I say that correct? Or was I confusing you just now?
That I understood.
Okay, in my head, I think I said it. Did I say that backwards or no? So essentially, if you're paying out, I would recommend QuickBooks. But if you're just receiving funds or just trying to keep track of expenses, Stride Health is the way to go.
It's a great first step.
Yeah. And then also a helpful product that we created just for you guys. And I want to show this to you. So this is Tax Tips for Artists. Basically, we categorize all the expenses, any expenses that you could think of that you could write off. And I wish more of our clients last year had this, but we developed this between last year and this year.
We developed it out of a need.
Yes, out of a need. So we basically researched over 100 expenses that artists can write off on their taxes, and it's basically set up in a ready to go worksheet style so that you can just by line item fill it in, and then also the strategies we went over today are also included in there. So I'm just gonna show you exactly what it looks like. So essentially, if you were to buy that, what it is all of these write-offs, such as I'll just show you here.
for example, with advertising. So this is a category that you can write off when you go to do your taxes. So we've listed for you, if you have a website or a blog hosting platform, if you.
How many of us have these things and have been paying for these things for years and we did not write them off because we didn't know?
Yeah, if you use something
right?
like
Like so many years, because as an artist, you need to have this, right? We understand the importance of marketing and we spend money and we invest in ourselves in these ways and we are not right.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so helpful.
Right, Sarah? Like
Yeah.
what? I can write all of this off. Yes, you can.
Yeah, you can write
Let
it
the
all out.
government pay you.
Get your money back.
Get it all back.
So domain name registrations, business cards,
Yes.
logo designs, rebranding projects.
Photo shoots. If you
Photo
have
shoots.
someone, you know, if you pay someone to take photos of you, all of these different things.
So what you would do is you would basically collect everything that you spent with all of these prompts that we've given you, what you could be thinking about, and you would write that line item right here, and you would go category by category. So if you traveled and you spent money on lodging, anything there, and there's over 100, like there's just a lot of that. So that's what this is for. And basically when you're done going through this, you would give it to your tax preparer, whether that be us or you use somebody else that you know, or even if you're doing it on TurboTax, you'll be able to use this so that you know exactly what you can write off in that category.
And it says
the line item. Yeah.
So that's helpful too, especially if you're like, I you know, financially I can't really pay someone, but I want to do it myself. That is helpful because when you go in TurboTax and different things like that, they have like the line items, and so you can look that up and see where to input that.
Yeah.
This is also, I guarantee you, you hand this to any tax preparer, they're gonna be like, thank you God.
Yeah. Yeah. Because what makes this easy to use is that, again, you don't need to hand your tax preparer all the receipts. They just want to know, what can you write off? You know what I mean?
Number?
Just give me the final number. That, like, I'm so excited to go into tax season, honestly, with having people use this, because it's going to save them so much money, and it's going to save us as tax preparers so much time. And it's when you have all your write-offs done and your deductions done, that's when you start talking, and that's when your tax liability goes really low, because you're able to write in and write off all those expenses that you had.
And it takes a lot less time. It's overall less stressful. And so, as Erin said, the tax preparer only needs the number, right? But then you would have that backed up, right? So maybe this year you just have like, you have your words, you guys. I'm also pregnant, so I'm gonna blame pregnancy brain.
Show them your belly. Show them.
I don't know if you can see, baby.
Tighten it.
There you go. There's baby.
I keep calling it my baby. I'm like, that's my baby.
I'm like, okay.
But it's not. It's hers. And
It's
her
my
husband's.
baby. But pregnancy brain. Oh, your when your online banking statements.
Oh, bank statements.
I got it. Your bank statements. So you would then have your bank statements this year, or maybe it's your Quick Pay or Venmo bank, statements, right? So that's your record, but really your tax preparer only needs the actual number, right? So it's less confusing process, because you're not like having to send someone all these receipts. They're not like, what is all of this? So know that this is just to really help. Like, I guarantee if I had this for all the artists that I did last year, it
would have been helpful.
So great.
Yeah. So we'll get through. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, and as Erin said, we do offer the service, right? And we have discounts for artists. Like, one of the things as a company that we've done is like, okay, there's a certain level that it costs to have a tax preparer, and we're taking into account what can artists afford. It is an investment still, right? So it's not for nothing, but we do take that into account. But if you wanted to get this and use it with anyone else, you have that. As Erin said, if you wanted to use it just for yourself, it's still something that is beneficial, whether or not you do your taxes with us. So that's not the point. It's to really help you during this tax season.
Whoever you decide to go
whoever
with.
you do.
And also there is a 20% off discount code, just because we like you guys and we just love artists. So use that to your advantage as well. And then this is just a little bit more about us and our services. We do tax preparation, we do consulting for people, and we also do bookkeeping services. So
that's what we do. There's a 20% off discount code that applies to our digital products, such as the one you just saw. And also that's our number and website. And you will get, once again, get a copy of this we'll get your email addresses from registration and send this to you.
Do you and Delicia have the numbers for what tax preparing is going to cost this year?
For artists?
Yeah.
It's not secured yet.
Okay,
So we're still
in the
working on
process,
that.
Teresa, but we see that question and we can get you the information.
Oh, okay. Thanks for catching that question.
Yeah, so they're working on that. So there's like a baseline that they have for all clients, and then they go back through and say, okay, this is what we want to do for artists and things like that. So we don't have those numbers quite yet, but we will get them to you.
Yes, we will.
Mhm.
And I want to leave space now for questions. I wanted to get through all that and end that so that we can just open up the floor. And thank you guys for joining us in this workshop. It's been a pleasure. And we want to now answer to the best of our ability questions you have.
Right. And also realizing too, if there's some question that we can't answer right here in this moment, we're committed to like getting the answer back to you. Right. So that might be some like, okay, because the laws are endless. They're so
and they're
endless,
always changing.
So we're having to stay up to date, especially with everything that happened this year with all of the grants and all of the money and all of the stipends that came out.
Yeah,
So
stimulus checks,
all of that.
Yeah.
So again, if we can't answer it right here in this moment,
I'm going to be typing the
Erin's going to
questions
type it, and then we'll send a follow-up
Yeah.
with some more specific things. So anyway, go ahead, everyone. Anyone have a question? So that is considered income, right? And so I think if you don't offset that with something, it will be tacked onto, not the negative side, but it's income, you'll be taxed on it. You will be taxed on it. So our suggestion is, if you have the ability to just buy something, right? To spend it on something, to use it in a way, maybe you need some new equipment, or maybe there's something that you can do here in the last couple months.
Yeah, and if you talk to certain financial advisors, depending on how much it is, you can even put it into some type of investment
that's more where you could take it out at your leisure. And that's even a wise idea, so that you're not taxed on it, but it's still accessible to you for what you need when you need it. In my personal experience, and even the company that we're partnered with, if you look on our website, we're partnered with a company called HR Accounting and Bookkeeping, and they only use QuickBooks, and she's been doing it for 30 plus years. So she hasn't had any trouble with it. And I trust her. She does a phenomenal job with all the clients that need her services through us. So, I mean, I'm not going to discredit their experience or their story, but with our journey thus far, it hasn't been a problem.
And I think too, there's always hesitancy with finances and like interactions online, but I think if you look at how we're doing that all the time, right? Like Quick Pay, Cash App, Venmo, all these Zelle, they all have all the same information essentially, right? I mean, there's that connection with your bank that QuickBook does have, but the information is there. We're exchanging it all the time. So you might as well do it in a way that would be beneficial to you in the long run as far as tracking it, right? So yeah, again, totally not discounting that person's experience because everyone's experience is their experience, but from the experiences that we've had and people that we're partnering with, it has been a good app.
I would say, well, congratulations on being a hobby business for 2 years now, and being semi-retired. That's the first thing. I think it's going to boil down to what you want and how you want to manage that. I think there's no harm in still tracking, because if anybody gets, looks at you cockeyed and looks at you crazy and is like, hey, and then you don't have it, then you're in a tight spot,
right?
Versus if you just have it, if you've been doing it, then it's to your benefit.
I would suggest still tracking them, just as Erin said, as a way to protection for yourself. I mean, even as for even like grants and other different things that come down the pike, it's always good to just have to show what's happening. But yeah, I don't think it's to your benefit or to your detriment to still track, if that makes sense, especially if it's not cumbersome to you. Again, it's your choice on how you want to do that, but I think I would suggest still tracking, just because the IRS loves to backdate things and they will backdate things 10 years. Not to say that that's going to happen, but I've known a few instances where the IRS was like, okay, we're checking you for the last 5 years. What have you been doing? You should have done this. You're like, well, I didn't know. And they don't care that you didn't know.
Right.
So I think it's always in your benefit, whatever situation it is, just to be on your your
Your
P's and Q's.
I think that that's really interesting you bring that up. And what I'm finding too is every tax preparer you work with has a different level of experience, and they also have different awareness of what you can be writing off or what that you should be tracking and whatnot. So there's small little details. When you go to prepare your taxes, you're putting numbers in different spots in different categories for different things. If one small thing is off, it's going to change your tax liability. It's going to change your tax return. So every person you're working with, it is going to be different because it depends on how they decided to prepare your taxes based upon what they thought was best for you. So it doesn't hurt to shop around if you need to, it's not surprising that you say that, but that is definitely a real thing, because we found that this last tax season as well, different preparers had different outcomes.
And their fees are also different too. So
Yeah.
It just depends. I don't think there's anything wrong with shopping around. Like, you are the consumer. And so I want to say, like, yeah, definitely. If, this price is better than this price, then go with that person, whoever you feel comfortable with.
Yeah, if he claims you, then you can't file your own taxes. So if you feel like you're not yet making profit and it's not beneficial yet for you to kind of be on your own because the profit margins just aren't there yet, then I would go ahead and let you be recommend that your dad claim you as a dependent and keep doing that.
Especially if you're still in that age bracket where he can.
But I also put my email in the chat box there. If you have more questions, I think I'd like to create a blog post with more questions as a follow-up. So if you want to send more there, that would be helpful as we, just get you more information that you need as an artist. So.
And follow us on all the social media. Is it at Pay It Forward Taxes?
Pay It Forward Taxes on Facebook and Instagram. Wherever.
As we gear up for the tax season, you'll see more blog posts from our preparers. You'll see more tips that come out. And yeah, we're really thankful that you spent your Saturday morning with us. We're hopeful that it was helpful to you, that you got some piece of information that you can act on, right? And that you're feeling a little bit less stressed about tax season, because although it can be overwhelming, you deserve to come out on top.
You deserve better.
You deserve better.